Welcome to 18th Century Cooking. I'm your host, John Townsend, and we have a special holiday episode. We're going to be doing a Christmas goose. That ought to be spectacular and fun. Thanks for joining us today as we savor the flavors and the aromas of the 18th century. Goose is mentioned in a lot of the 18th century cookbooks. We're going to pick out this one. This is the English Art of Cookery by Richard Briggs. This is 1788 English cookbook. A great one, chock full of just really great recipes. The goose recipe is pretty simple. Some of them do something like they'll give you directions for a turkey and then say, oh yeah, do a goose like that. This one's specifically for goose, which is kind of nice. It's definitely goose. It's definitely different than trying to do this with a turkey or a chicken. The goose we've got to work with here is a pretty smallish goose. I'm not sure exactly how big theirs were in the time period, but I'm guessing that even in a time period fashion, this would be a smaller goose. We're supposed to truss this goose up. Pick it and wash it. We chop a dozen sage leaves, 2 large onions, some salt, pepper, and put them inside the bird. Then we put it down to the fire and we baste it. Sprinkle some salt on. We dredge it with flour, so we put flour over the top of it. It says a large goose will take an hour and a half, a small one about 1 hour. When it's done, baste it with butter, dredge it with a little more flour, and then it has directions for serving it to the table. And we'll cover that when we get done with this bird. So this bird we have already cleaned, got the vast majority of feathers off this. These geese can be very difficult to get all the feathers off. It's so nice when we go to a grocery store today and all our chickens are perfectly plucked. This one is off the farm, so it's we've got our own troubles to go with it, but we've basically cut off all the parts that we don't need for the roasting of it. And let me get this salt and pepper, these onions chopped up, put inside the bird, and we'll tie it up so we can hang it by the fire. I've got enough of our onions and sage to basically fill the cavity up here, although this is again, there's not a ton of meat on a bird like this. They're actually pretty hollow. There's a big cavity in here. So let's put some onions in here first. And then we'll put some salt and pepper in. And I'm just going to kind of put these in layers. Salt and pepper. Let's put a little bit of sage in there. We really want to have this cavity filled with something kind of like this. And I think that this is going to actually help it in a couple of different ways, along with the flavor of these onions, the salt and the pepper, sort of seasoning it from the inside out. So it'll be, well, I can't wait to try it. Sometimes birds are just seasoned on the inside with butter and salt and pepper. Goose is a naturally darker meat bird, so it probably doesn't need as much of the butter on the inside. This particular recipe doesn't call for any butter on the inside. Last little bit. Salt and pepper, that looks really good. Now we just need to tie this bird up so that we can hang it by the fire. And what we're really just trying to do is both have a way to hang the bird and also to keep these the wings and the legs inside so they don't get burned. So step one, let's do this. I'm going to do this in a couple of different tie-offs because it's hard to do in one single throw here. I'm going to get these legs together. Just a simple square knot's going to hold those legs together, but I want to bring this whole tail end up all together. Okay, so that looks good. Now, wings. There we go. That'll hold that together. Now we need to have sort of a fully surrounding piece so that we can hang this bird and it continues to hold everything together so it'll cook nice and evenly all the way around. So we've got our bird strung up, and it's kind of at an angle to accept the heat as best it can. This method works really good for a campfire or a fireplace that doesn't have a lot of equipment, or if you don't have a reflector oven or whatever it takes. So it's a nice simple method, but it does take a little extra time because we can't get it quite as close. And if we want to catch drippings, which is always difficult with an open fire like this because it wants to burn our drippings away, we have to kind of build the fire up to one side and make it a little vertical. So I used a couple of fire bricks here to help make the fire higher, because it's always easy to cook things directly from the bottom, but not easy to cook it to the side. That's where a reflector oven would really help in this situation. So I'm keeping the fire up nice and high, letting this cook down. We do put, as this bird cooks, the fat from inside the skin kind of comes to the outside. We're supposed to keep a little bit of flour going on the outside of it, dredge it with flour. We don't need to butter it. That's one of the things that's kind of nice about this goose. There's so much fat under the skin, so it butters itself. And we're just gonna keep rotating this very slowly over the fire. If we have one little string here, we can wind it kind of up. We don't want it to spin fast, but nice and slow. It doesn't take very often that you need to kind of touch it, and it will keep slowly rotating. As the bottom cooks, because there's more heat at the bottom, we have to turn the bird over and kind of cook it for the other side. Occasionally you gotta kind of feel it, see if it's cooking everywhere. We might have to alter that string just a little bit. Again, we're gonna cook this. It might take, in this circumstance, a little bit longer because it's hard to get really close to the fire since it's on its string. Well, we garnished this up just like it called for, which is some beets and some lemons. So we got some red and yellow in there. We got to put a little kale in there with some green. If we're supposed to have gravy underneath the goose, and we made some gravies out of some of that, the drippings that came off of that, and it smelled tremendous. While it's cooking, a lot of those flavors or a lot of those smells go right up the chimney, but now that it's off the fire, whoa, you get all that great, wonderful smell. So let's give this a try. Gravy is wonderful, that's for sure. And you could see as I was carving this, that it's a dark meat bird, right? Like a duck. It's not anything like a chicken or a turkey with all this white meat on top. No, it's all dark meat. And of course, I really enjoy that. Not nearly so dry. So a nice tender meat. Although, a smaller bird like this, and especially a farmyard bird, they can be a little tougher to work with. So you got to kind of be used to that. Definitely a totally different experience than what we're used to. Chicken, turkey, totally different and very, very wonderful. Just you gotta try out something like this. If you can't find a goose, try a duck. If you can find those, usually those aren't nearly so hard to find, and probably almost as big as the one we were cooking here. Would be a great substitute. We've been talking about this one for so long, a Christmas goose. I'm so glad we were able to get it done for this season, and spectacular looking, amazing smells, wonderful flavors. So glad we were able to give this one a try. If you can't find a goose, look for a duck. Try this out. You can, roast it like we did over and over open fire, or you can do it in your oven at home. So wonderful. Try it out for Christmas. I want to thank you guys for coming along on this, Christmas adventure as we try out something that, we don't normally get a chance to, but it's so quintessentially Christmas. So a lot of fun with that. I hope you give it a try. Hey, and thanks for coming along with us as we savor the flavors and the aromas of the 18th century, and Merry Christmas.